In this episode, I drive down the road to Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. It's a town known for its beer, but I'm in search of a drink for the gods. I stopped by Upper Reach Meadery for a socially distant sit-down with Adam and Brandalynn. We talk a little bit about the world's oldest fermented beverage and pivoting a business to combat COVID. Welcome to No Pants During the Pandemic. Hi, I'm Kevin Brooks, and this is No Pants During the Pandemic. Today I'm here in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, about 38 miles outside of Philadelphia on the Schuylkill River. Most people would think I'm here to visit one of the many breweries in town. In fact, there's more breweries per square foot here in downtown Phoenixville than anywhere else in the country. But today, I'm not here to talk about beer. Today, the subject is mead. I'll be visiting Upper Reach Meadery and talking with owner Adam Crockett and business development manager Brandalynn Armstrong. Come on inside with me. Hey guys, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great. Why don't we just start with, well, Adam, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you went down this path of, mead.
Gosh, I got into mead a while ago, probably almost 20 years ago now. Was a home brewer, like a lot of people in this industry. Started with beer, quickly moved into wine and beer, and then reading some of the classic Papazian books. I read about this beverage called mead, and made my first mead. It was okay, at best. I believe my mother still has a bottle of it at the house, because moms don't throw away anything. But at least the idea was sparked.
And Brandalynn, why don't you tell me who you are?
My name is Brandalynn Armstrong. I am the business development manager or business manager, Jill of all trades, at Upper Reach Meadery. I was in the craft beer industry with another project for about a decade. I had formerly been on the board of directors of the Brewers of PA Guild. I had served with Pink Boots, and I've done a lot with the diversity, equity, and inclusion space in alcohol, beer specifically. So I wanted to carry that on, and here we are.
Now, how do you go from homebrewing mead to making it professionally?
Started finding some commercial meaderies out there, like people like Moonlight Meadery and Redstone and all those guys, and just trying what they made and realizing that what I was making was, as a home brewer, just in my basement, was of in that range. It was of that quality. So I said, let's start entering into some competitions everywhere from Texas, Florida, California, our own state here at War of the Worts. And we started winning a decent amount of awards. Surprising. I mean, honestly, I knew I was making good liquid, but didn't know if it was that good.
It's that good.
And so the idea grew a little bit more on that day. And each time we won a new award, I was like, hey, all right, someone else thinks this is good. Not just my close circle of friends that are going to lie to me and tell me it's good just because it's free booze. Some judge out there that I have no idea who it was thought it was good enough to award it a medal. I then got the gutsy move to think about entering my home brews into Mazer Cup, which is the largest mead competition in the world. Entered it as a home brewer my first year, took home third place in the category that I entered into. That's when things kind of got serious. I was like, all right, this is the largest competition in the world, represented by, at that point, maybe 10 or 15 countries or something like that. But to win an award in that meant a lot. And so at that point, me and my wife got pretty serious about it. Sort of really trying to hash out a plan. How can we do this? We took a trip and went and visited any meadery that we could find within a 2 days car ride from our house. We literally
How many was that?
6.
Sorry.
I was going to say 4.
It was 6 between Philadelphia and Indianapolis. But it was a huge, huge, huge moment for us. We got to sit down with Ken Tram before Ken Tram opened up his meadery. And we got to sit down with the guys from Bee Nectar. And Ken Tram and Brad Book opened up to us and told us the pluses and the minuses and what they would change, what they wouldn't.
So Ken Tram wrote the complete Mead Maker, right? Just making sure I got
Wrote the book.
He wrote the book. I had a lot of experience in our area, so I knew a lot of bar owners. I knew a lot of people in the industry that I said, oh, I'm going to try this adventure and see what happens here. Went for it, and here we are now.
There's a lot of misconceptions about mead. I think a lot of people think of the Ren fairs, they think of J.R.R. Tolkien, they think of Icelandic Eddas, but that's not what you're making. That's not the product you're really making. What's mead?
It's a good question.
We
mead,
call it modern mead.
We call it modern mead. Yeah. Mead to me is an alcoholic beverage brewed by. That's the simplest way to put it. It is an ancient beverage. It is a historical beverage. And as I got more into mead, I started looking at in mead, I think, in a different way than others, not everyone, but others. And then I looked at the honey part of mead being just a sugar content that can be the replacement for grapes in wine, or for barley in beer, or for apples in cider. I didn't pigeonhole myself into, okay, this is what mead is and what it should be. I looked at it and said, wow, this is what wine is, and this is a really cool style of wine. How can I mimic that, but make it a mead? Or this is a really cool style of beer that I love. How can I do that, but with a mead? It was boundaryless, and that's what really appealed to me. I didn't have to play in one camp. I didn't have to play in the wine world. I didn't have to play in the beer world. I could play in the wine and the beer world. I could play in the cider world. I could play in the distillery world if I wanted to, meaning just their barrels, and pull these barrels and do some amazing aging in it. So there was a little bit of a freedom for me that I could do all of this stuff. Breweries right now, if you're not making IPAs, if you're not making hazy IPAs, you almost can't be open. We don't do that kind of stuff, but I can make a mead that tastes like a good pale ale. We have one called Sweet Proof. It's beautiful for what it is. It's gorgeous. If you like pale ales, and especially being gluten-free, this is in your wheelhouse. At the same time, I can make bone-dry meads that are just like champagne and carbonated just like champagne naturally.
But seeing how that relates to the lack of education in mead, that was a baseline for understanding how to educate and ways to think outside the box to get someone to try something they wouldn't otherwise recognize the value of or might have a bad perception of. Because you say sour beer, that could be a turnoff. You say mead, that could be a turnoff. Yeah. People might think a super cloying, super traditional honey wine, which there's a place and a time for that, but that's not what we're doing. It's been interesting, the parallels between beer that I love and the mead world, lack of education and understanding, because it's not just one thing. You might have had a bad experience, but keep trying. Isn't that the point?
Before you mentioned modern mead. So, and your slogan is modern mead for all. What is modern mead?
When I started in December of last year, getting to know the brand and getting to know the mead category in general was a big learning curve. And even though I was in alcohol, it was still a very different space. And they had all these traditions and very particular ways of doing things. What defines modern mead? I think it is almost a fearlessness with techniques and ingredients, but also with the one golden rule of quality.
Totally.
And when he started out in 2014, 2015 is when he really started, pushing some projects out. What he was doing was incredibly different, because there are sectors of mead makers and drinkers. Some are straight up traditionalists, which is honey, water, and yeast. We use time techniques, we use ingredient techniques to try and execute our products as best as possible. And so the modern mead is our take on taking this ancient beverage and bringing it to a current consumer that can understand it a little bit more than I should be drinking this with a Viking form.
When you say for all.
For all, we really focus again on diverse offerings. We have everything from a bone dry method champenois, pet nat mead, to a super big, fruity, sweet fruit pipe mead to these low ABV honey spritzers. And so we do believe we have mead for all, not only just in product, but we want to stay true to all of our mission of being an inclusive space, supporting inclusive initiatives, and really bringing education to the alcohol industry in general as to why we should be focusing on for all.
So with these the spritzy ones, they're crushable.
I know, it's the idea.
These are what I like to call our lawnmower meads. I mean, it's a perfect replacement for cider or for a wine spritzer or even like a lighter radler.
With the, I don't want to say traditional ones, but the ones that were more accessible, that sweetness just sticks on you.
The viscosity that they end up having, which some people like. I appreciate it. It's not my thing though. It's very popular in the mead world right now to make these monster meads. It's the Hayes boys of the mead world. And
pastry stouts.
Yes. And we do a couple, and I think ours were delicious. I just make ours balanced, and actually I kind of get digs for that a lot because they just want to be sweet and cloying and syrupy, and I'm like, no, I'm going to make it balanced with acidity and tannins and make it nice. And they're like, oh, I just wish it was sweeter, or wish it was bigger, or wish it was, no. It doesn't taste like raw blueberry juice. I'm like, it's true.
Now, you were talking about kind of alluding to like the terminology and not knowing, the stories of how things are, mead's got all these different styles. I mean, I can't remember all the styles. You probably still can't remember some of those ones because they're out there.
It's a lot. I mean, you've got Pymans, you've got Methagling, you've got traditional, and then you have like people in the different camps of you can't blend these. We want to make something that tastes like an experience. So sometimes you can't be too roll round. But, it's been a lot of learning, and I think that in the segment that we're in, I get a little bit more of a pass with time to kind of learn those things.
Some of the names are so strange. I don't know them all. I know the basics, and I learn new ones all the time by having conversations and or reading things online where I'm like Lactimel.
I
was like, that's really
okay.
a thing?
With the traditional processes that you do, which aren't as great as in amount, not quality, but that aren't as prolific in our lineup. I think you do traditional well though too, because you can follow the rules.
Traditional mead is.
Who knew that traditional would sell so well? And traditional mead is a baseline, so people usually that are new to mead go for a traditional, and then they'll go for some of our crazy stuff, like one that tastes like chocolate cake with ghost peppers in it.
A traditional mead is a great introduction, like you said, for somebody who doesn't know mead. And for that reason alone, I think our traditional mead that we make is beautiful. I think it shows that people come in, don't know what mead is, try it, and they go home with it. At the same time, I think traditional mead is the pilsner or the lager for the experienced mead person who's going to go into a new place. If I go to a new brewery, I'm picking a pilsner or a lager if it's on there. I can taste. If it's good, I know we're going to have a good time here. If it's not, then all right, I'm going to tread a little bit more carefully. But I think in the same light as traditionals for us, there's nothing to hide behind a traditional mead.
It's honey, water, yeast.
Yeah, and if it's done well, with any meadery, if I have the traditional mead at any meadery and it's done well, I get excited. I'm like, all right, let's have some fun here.
So you were basically moonlighting, you had a day job and you were running, at the time, Haymaker Meadery, in your spare time.
I had a lot of it, man, and I know children.
How did this switch, and you've just recently changed to Upper Reach, how did it switch to become the real job and then to bring on, people so you weren't basically working alone?
Yeah. It went from a weekend warrior to full-time for me when I brought on my partner, who is someone I knew and worked with in Long Island for a very long time, and we've become best friends and someone who's part of my life forever. He's amazing in the business side of things, and I'm not. We are classic left brain, right brain. He is not creative at all. Sorry, Mike, if you ever watch this, you probably won't, but he is not creative, but he's a genius at business and structure. I am an idiot in business, in structure, but very good at creativity and creating these kind of beverages. So my first move when I saw we've been doing this for 4 years, and it was literally a shit or get off the pot kind of a moment. I was like, we gotta do something with this. Like, we won amazing, prestigious awards, but we're not doing anything with it. And I was like, I'm gonna call Mike, see if he wants in. And he was able to come with the business side and the funds to help us move to the next level. He was the perfect person to help me out for many reasons. I could show him my product and let him taste it as an uneducated palate. And he represented 80% of the people buying the product out there, not the beer nerds, not the wine hosts. He was the person that knew nothing about it. But if he liked it, means it's probably, and it did well in the beer and wine world, then we've got a product that's working in all aspects. It took about a year for me to bring him up to speed on what mead is, what the industry does, how it works, and quickly I started pitching to him, well, I need someone to help me out here, man. This is nuts. And now, I was running around like crazy.
So when did you come on board?
December of 2019. One of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. And that is really good to say.
You came from a brewery background.
Yeah.
You had your own startup. So, I mean, that brings a whole different set as you're, I guess, transitioning to, well, bricks and mortar.
When I left, we were about 5 years old, the brewery that I was with. We had matriculated to 2 locations, and that part of my story was over. I wanted to stay within the alcohol industry, but I didn't necessarily want to dive right back into beer. And I took contract actually for someone that Adam was working with that came to a close. And around that closure time, I got an email from him, and it was just like, hey, like, want to talk more? Would you like to go to Starbucks for some coffee?
No, I think the email to you said, it literally was like, I don't know how you fit it in this company, but I know I want you to be part of it. So it's like, let's go have coffee, sit down, and let's chat about this, because you have a lot of talents that I admire and I think could fit in the idea that I have, that me and Mike at that time had the idea where we wanted to go. I said, I honestly don't know what that position would be yet. I said, but let's chat about it.
What knowledge have you brought from the brewing world to your new job?
It's been a lot of taking the last 10 years of my experience doing things wrong and having to learn how to do things right to be able to help them set themselves up appropriately. I didn't realize my worth for a very long time until I took the leap, which was very scary for me to join this after, I had departed my last project.
That was part of my convincing you.
Yeah.
I knew your worth, and I was like, let's do this, girl.
I know.
And you just weren't sure, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but...
It's a scary thing not having confidence in yourself, even though those skills exist.
Yeah.
I didn't want to let you down. Even before I said yes, I didn't want to let you down. I'm like, when I met his business partner, Mike, I was like, Adam's going to need some infrastructure because one person can't do it alone.
No.
So I was like,
No.
It's going to need some infrastructure. Are we good with that? And he's like, yeah. And so I started working on, if I were to do it again, what would I change? And where would I focus some of my resources? And where could I do better? And I looked at that and took my experience and went, the right people, the right fits, not trying to, cover too much of the spread, paying attention to home and work balance. Because that is something that people don't talk about.
That and, financial quality of life, which is in the beer industry and in the spirits industry, it's a bad.
And I hate to crap on our industry, but if someone's not talking about it, they should be.
Yeah.
And I think people are now, but you want good quality talent and people, you have to provide in both financial and quality of environment.
Well, it's few and far between because they
just
just can't.
It takes a level of revenues to be able to rise above the smaller margin for a smaller craft brewery. I mean, let's face it, the amount of breweries, which is why I love being in the mead space, because it's still pretty few and far between. It's a little bit new. It reminds me of craft beer, way back ago. But, there are a lot of breweries opening up, which I think is a great thing, as long as the focus is on quality liquid, because that rises all boats. So if people are having issues and they're investing more into their label package and their aesthetics of their tasting room versus their quality control, you can taste it.
This is Moscato juice added above.
Yeah, I'm shocked how dry this is.
There's nothing left.
But it doesn't dry out your mouth so much where you feel like it's an unpleasant experience.
A good bone dry, whether it's champagne, cider, beer, they don't generally do that if they're done well. Really, it almost smells how the champagne has that.
Yeah, it's
smell.
It is 50% grape juice and 50% honey, and that's that perfect balance. I think when you do these kind of things, you're going to go for bone dry, and you need to pick out the right honey for it as well that will support it, and then you use tannins and enzymes to make sure that you get that full body in your mouth, so that you're not just it's not just alcohol. It's not just alcohol and water.
How do you pick what honey goes in?
Years of tasting and knowing honey. So I look at honey like brewers would look at crystal malts. I look at them as building blocks, and I do build with different honeys. So I might say a wildflower base with 30% orange blossom and 5% buckwheat honey, just because I want a little bit of that barny, molassesy buckwheat in there. So I just build it like that, but I just try honeys all the time. And I think Brandalynns probably tried 45 different honeys now since she's been with us. And anytime I get new honeys, apiary or a honey supplier, send me your samples.
Are they mostly local-ish, or are they from all over the world?
No, we get a lot of honey from down in Arizona, BC's one. We get our wildflower honey from them. It's beautiful, beautiful organic wildflower honey. It's absolutely gorgeous.
And they're so sweet.
They are. They're
like
awesome
as a
people.
company, like as a husband and wife team,
they're amazing.
They are so wonderful.
So we get it from there. I do buy a good amount, as much as I can get my hands on, local. Like when I say local, like we've done in the past, we're sold out of them now, and we need to go back and do them again. But in the past, I worked with local beekeeping associations and made a honey. I made a mead with their honey. So I made a Philadelphia mead called Philly. I made a Montgomery mead. I made a Chester County mead. And we would make them with just honey from those beekeeping associations, small beekeepers. And then we would do a side-by-side little competition with them. And you could see how different the honey can be from county to county.
From what could be 20 miles.
It was beautiful.
It was
and
awesome.
We medaled for 3 out of those.
We did. Burke's took gold at the Mazer Cup. So that Burke's, which we're sold out of, is technically for this year the best semi-sweet traditional mead in the world.
Now I guess, is it called brewing? I don't know what the process of making honey
It's
is.
technically brewing.
Yeah, but it's a little bit different.
It's
wine
amazing.
Yeah.
It's not brewing.
He's a mazer.
Yes.
I learned that.
Yes.
It's not, you call it whatever you want. But it's not brewing, because I think of brewing with heat. So
Yeah.
you don't use any heat.
What's the process?
So, if we're going to do a traditional mead, we pick out our honey, whatever honey we want. We heat that honey up to about 90 degrees just to get the viscosity able to move. It makes it easier. At that point, we take that honey, because now we can move it, which means dump it or pump it out. And we mix it with generally 100-degree water just to get it into solution. We have a very high concentrated solution at that point. If we're making 15 barrels, we might be doing 5 barrels at a very high gravity, and then we water it down to 15 barrels to what our gravity is. If we add fruit, we add fruit. If we're just making a traditional, we don't add any fruit. We mix it, add yeast, add nutrients. We're off to the races.
It sounds more simple than it really is. The interesting part for me was learning how the acid adjustments and the straight up expensive lab equipment that we are doing our samples on and all that kind of stuff. To me, part of the reason why what you make is so wonderful is because it's balanced, but because you are knowledgeable about how to utilize these ingredients. I feel like what I knew before you was it took so much time to make mead. I really thoroughly misunderstood that you could achieve a quality mead and it doesn't have to be 6 years old.
Yeah.
The way you handle it, the way that you understand the nuance of your acidity and your fruits and all of these things, It's actually really magical watching him do that. And we get to participate, actually. So I'll take some credit in some of that because, our
you guys out
palates,
samples all the time and try.
we do bench tests. It's a collective effort in some of those things, but it's so impressive. And how you treat the liquid, how you care for the liquid while it's fermenting, and with your additional, additions and how we are preserving it or whatever. It's amazing to me the sheer amount of care that actually has to go into it.
Well, I mean, whether it's beer, cider, mead, wine, it is that extra care that takes it from a meh to stellar.
I say this a lot, but it is easy to make mead. It is easy to do it. It's honey, water, yeast, and a little bit of nutrients. It's easy to make it. It's not easy, and it's hard to make good mead. You can make alcohol. I promise that. You might not want to ingest it, but you get something.
How long does a mead stay good for?
If made right or perfect, I guess is the best way of putting it. If made perfect, technically with alcohol and honey in it, you should have an indefinite shelf life. I mean, I've had 15, 20-year-old meads that are gorgeous. But I mean, most of our meads, we shoot for our meads to be consumed within the first couple of years of when they're purchased. But when we bottle our mead, it's
ready to drink.
It's ready to drink right then and there. If you want to cellar it, sure. I don't know if there'll be any added bonus there, but maybe I do. Sometimes I throw some meads out there just to see what happens to it. Just to see if I'm doing my job right. Like, is it holding up in shelf life? Is it not?
Yeah. So you switched from Haymaker to Upper Reach Meadery. Why the change, and what other changes are going on here now?
Haymaker was my weekend projects. Now that we've come further and beyond that, we wanted to show that we were moving in a direction that was going to showcase where we were going. We believe that's premium products. We believe we're making a premium meat. We believe we're making something that is amazing. And the idea that Upper Reach was that. It was an idea that came from this team, this conglomeration of us.
Over almost a year.
Yeah, and even Erin, my wife, at the beginning, before we had children, then that became a lot of her responsibility to allow me to do what I needed to do. And she's been a huge part of that. She's doing it right now as we're here. She's taking care of everything for me, allowing me to be here. So she's a huge part of this team. But we just outgrew the Haymaker name, and Upper Reach seemed to work really well for us. The minute I heard it, I was like, yeah, that's an awesome name. Because I think it plays in a lot of what we do. We are
the upper echelon.
Upper echelon. We are the premium. We are that side of what we need. That's what I take pride in making.
You're also pushing the envelope as well.
And we can say that and also be humble. Because one of the beautiful things about this is the shared knowledge. And I feel like I've watched almost some backwards motion in the beer industry versus the meat industry that is kind of burgeoning, and people are still finding that camaraderie and they're helping each other. And I think one of Adam's biggest success points, and one of the things that I'm most proud of him for, and one of the things that we always are striving for the Upper Reaches, is his ability to put ego aside and ask the questions that other people might not ask because they might feel silly or shunned or whatever. This man asks all the questions, and
I have some pretty stupid questions.
There are no stupid questions. Only stupid, not asked questions.
Yes.
There's a few stupid questions. I mean, it's small, but there's a few.
But there's always a tactful way to handle them.
I wish I could figure that out.
That's what I'm for.
So part of the rebrand to Upper Reach, you guys bought a location here in downtown Phoenixville. This was going to serve as basically your tap room. What can you tell me about it?
That was going to be the main cornerstone for 2020. We were going to have the whole first floor as our meadery tasting room. The original goal was to have a mead tasting room where you can enjoy, meet people, talk about the products, have a nice kind of low-key evening, and honestly learn a little bit more about this beverage that has so many misconceptions. So we really wanted to provide an educational outfit to the brand that had been successful for the years leading up to this.
You guys were basically still mid-construction, putting the whole project together, when in mid-March the country shuts down. You had to pivot. You had to change what this was. So what did you do?
It takes a lot of money, time, and effort to get these things launched. We obviously knew that it wasn't going to be a 2-week thing. We had to look and plan for, what if this is 3 months? What if this is 6 months? What if this is 9 months? What if this is a year? What if it's more than that? I mean, the very social fabric of the way in which we intended to operate our business couldn't be operated. There was a moment there, when I had a very real conversation. I'm like, are we continuing or are we putting this on pause? Ultimately, we decided we had it in us to keep going.
So you've made it a pop-up shop. Can you tell me, what you did?
Since we couldn't have on-site consumption, the front portion of our building, which we're sitting in now, was converted into our pop-up bottle shop. So it's kind of crazy because this was all open floor plan, and we built a temporary wall to make it more intimate. We didn't want this huge sprawling open space. We weren't going to be hosting people in here in mass, and we wanted to build it out and get it up and running, and we executed this from start to finish in approximately 2 months.
We were able to put this here, and we're taking this time as our introduction to the town. Like, that's what we're doing, and it's working out amazingly. I would rather have this place full open and be rocking and rolling, but it's kind of nice to be able to come in this way and spend a little bit more of intimate time with people that come in that just see us. I don't know anything about mead, but this place looks awesome. Tell me about it. And whoever's here can spend 10 minutes with that person telling them about mead and letting them try some stuff and intimately introducing them to it or reintroducing them to it. And it's working out well for us. We can see in our return customers, which is great.
But it has been very challenging with the disruptions that we've been handled to turn around traditional means of being able to operate this. So luckily within our licensing agreements and partnerships, we're able to do this to buy us that time to get through all of those facets. It's a delicate area in the way in which we survived. Completely above board and defendable, yes. But it definitely took a lot of looking at what we couldn't do to formulate what we could do so we could champion on.
Get creative.
You have to get creative.
I tell myself in a moment of panic when
You're
I have
myself,
my own
so there's two of you?
No.
I tell myself.
Well, I tell my wife and myself. I don't tell you, team, so much, but I have my moments of panic at home where I'm like, what am I doing? Why now? Why would you choose now to do this? But I calm myself down by saying, listen, we've got an incredible team behind us, and if we can make it during this time, we can make it anytime. We'll come out of this stronger. I am now confident, more than I was when this first started, that we are going to come out of this, and we already are stronger and better than where we were, for sure. You said something that I love. You said we're small but mighty, or you said something like
we're a lean but mighty team.
That's it, a lean but mighty team. We are. There's 5 of us pretty much, and everyone brings something different to the table, mm-hmm. and we kick ass.
Well, guys, thanks for playing host and giving me booze and chatting with me. And best of luck with the whole new setup, and I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to see you.
If you'd like to learn more about Upper Reach Meadery, you can check out their website. You can also buy their meads in 40 states. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.